Okay, my name is Scott Bagley. I'm actually with the Utah Center for Assistive Technology, and I help administer a grant for the State Office of Education called the UACT project. So I belong to UCAT, which runs UACT. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about assistive technology and what it is, and then we're going to look at a bunch of different products and things that are out there. And assistive technology is one of two things. There's two parts, let me put it that way, in the assistive technology legal definition. And the first part is stuff. That's not the whole thing, but it's stuff that helps people do stuff that they couldn't normally do. And so you guys can kind of figure out stuff. I mean, if somebody can't drink from a cup, normally, if they can't tip their head back, but they've got a good suck, what would be assistive technology for them? A straw. So a straw can legally be assistive technology. The second part to the legal definition of assistive technology is assistive technology services. Okay, assistive technology services are the people to help people use their stuff. And to not only use it, but to find it, to repair it. Anything, any type of service that's involved in using or acquiring or repairing assistive technology is assistive technology services. So some of the assistive technology we're going to look at may require a little bit more training than another assistive technology product. And it's a lot more, actually, a lot of the cost may be on the services part of assistive technology as compared to the stuff cost for the assistive technology. So the first thing you're going to do is just kind of walk around to the stations. I'm also going to show you some stuff up here. So over here, I've got my really, really low-tech stuff. And these are communication devices. Now, who's familiar with Stephen Hawking? He could probably use some of this stuff, but he chooses to use a more expensive option. Has anybody seen anything like this before? In a class or in a hospital? What do you know what they call this? Like a picture. This is just a communication board. And so if I come up to you and I go like this, what am I saying? Corn dog? I want a corn dog. Did I get my message across? So we communicated, but I used a different medium than my voice for communication. So now I could say something along these lines. Squash. Okay. Now I've got two examples of a communication board up here. Now this is a communication book. The nice thing about this is I can have a lot more items in here. Now, what's your name? McKenna. McKenna. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you to look through this and find something that you want to tell me. Don't tell me. Don't point to it. Don't do anything. So the first thing that somebody may need is some previous exposure. If you wanted to say something and you didn't know how to say it, or were not familiar with how to communicate with somebody, then that's going to be hard. Okay, oh, you pointed to it. I have no idea what it is.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do what we call partner-assisted scanning. And this means that we've got to have just one thing. We've got to have an understood, between the two of us, we have an understanding for how you're going to say yes. I'm going to ask you questions. They're yes, no questions. Okay. And you're going to look up when the answer is yes for each of my questions, okay? So is what you wanted on this page? Okay. How about this page? So on this page, is it in this column? Okay, is it in the top three? Is it the top one? So you're glad to meet me. Well, nice to meet you too. So again, is this a really expensive item? This is about $10. So that's the nice thing about these. Also, if I do this with this, did anybody freak out? A little bit? A little bit. Somebody threw something in my classroom. But nobody went, holy freak, you just destroyed that thing, right? Is that something to think about as you're considering assistive technology for your students? Yes, it is. Also, does everybody see you over on this table over here? There's a white thing about this size. It's called a Tango. The price for it is $7,800. If somebody drops that in the swimming pool, would somebody else freak out? Yes. Now, let's say they've got one of these and one of these, and somebody's really intelligent and doesn't let them take their Tango near the swimming pool. Instead, they give them something along these lines, and this goes in the drink. How do you feel about walking up to your principal, whoever your supervisor is, and saying, I need $10? Now, if you're smart, you're going to say, we went to the swimming pool, and you know that $7,800 device you approved? Well, we didn't take that because we knew there was a possibility that it might get wet. So we took this instead and he dropped it in the swimming pool. I need $10 to replace this. Also, what happens to batteries eventually? They die. Do things get broken? A lot of our population is really tough on their equipment. So having a backup is a great plan. I need another volunteer, and I'm going to pick on somebody over here. Don't tell me your name, but you're my volunteer. Aren't you glad? Okay, this is an eye gaze frame. People are really good at telling where you're looking. Everybody over here knows my head's to the back of them, so I'm probably not looking at you, correct? It's called an eye gaze frame. It's just a PVC eye gaze frame. Now, there is eye gaze technology for individuals where the computer watches their eyes and figures out where they're looking. That technology is about $14,000 for an eye gaze communication system. Now, I'm going to have you spell your name out for me, but we're going to use that same understanding that when you look up, the answer is yes, okay? So we look at the first letter of your name. And I already know that he's looking down here. So I'm going to go pretty slow. Okay, so we got an S. Okay, next letter is over here. Okay, C, Scott. That's my name too, so that was pretty easy. But we had an understanding, right? And we were able to communicate. Now, do I have to use letters on an eye gaze frame? Could I use some of the symbols that you've already seen? Yeah. So we can go from choosing maybe 2 things to 4 things, maybe even 6, and different items to choose from, to learning, to counting. So we can do where's number 1. So if that's their IEP goal, we could actually jumble the letters up, or the numbers, and work on those different IEP goals using an eye gaze frame. Does that make sense? So again, how much is this? Cheap. It's pretty cheap. And it can be a very efficient means of communication. And people don't cost as much as $14,000. Over here, we've got some of our mid-tech augmented communication options. And this is called a Big Mac switch. And what it'll do is, if the battery's not dead, how's it going? The battery died. Somebody left it on. I should have checked it before I left. What this will do is it'll play one recorded message over and over and over again. You guys have good enough imaginations. I'm counting on you right now. Does that make sense? Has anybody seen one of these used? What was it used for?
I worked at the Jordan Valley School, and they did a hello song. They recorded the name, and then the kids pushed the button when their name was supposed to be said.
Okay.
So.
That's great. So introducing yourself. The nice thing is, it takes this long. You press this button, you speak into the microphone, and you've got your recording done. So training doesn't take very long. Which is one thing that you've got to consider. You've got to look at their support services and who's available. And if they're technophobic, this may be a good option for them. Because it's easy to say, you need batteries, you press 2 buttons and you speak. Now, one thing that I like this for is items that have repetitive text. Hopefully that's not a new phrase for you guys. What's repetitive text? Okay. Repetitive text is text that repeats throughout a book. Think green eggs and ham. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam, I am. How many times is that repeated? And there's a reason it's in there. Anybody hear the Brown Bear books? Okay. There's a reason they do that. It makes the book predictable. And so it helps with learning to read. So if we have a group and we're doing a group reading activity, and we've got a nonverbal student, if they don't have access to something like this, what may happen? They're going to be excluded. And they're going to shut down. Because if you're not included in an activity, are you going to participate in the activity? Probably not. Does that make sense?
This also is helpful, guys, if you have varying disabilities levels in your classroom. So you might have a little higher functioning, a little lower functioning. So lower functioning students can actually participate, they're nonverbal, by using, this is basically called a control switch. It's kind of the broad category for it. There are different kinds of switches, but they're called control switches.
Yeah.
So you can kind of, you can easily kind of manage different levels of functioning by using stuff like this.
The other thing that's really nice about something like this is it's something that can be easily introduced into a classroom. So for instance, if Scott over here is our target student, and I'm sorry I remember your name so well, Scott. What I may want to do is as I'm doing something with repetitive text, I may want to walk around the classroom and as we're doing it and give you an opportunity to press the button and get the sound out, you an opportunity. And this works a lot better with sound coming out of it. Thank you for your imaginations. But now when this ends up on Scott's desk, it's a little bit easier for Scott to not be excluded from the group.
Or be singled out.
Yeah, he's a kid who uses something. And even if Scott's got one, if I've got a second one, I can take this one and allow it to maybe sit over on this table for a little while. And I know the batteries work in this one. So, and somebody's been playing with my recordings for grape juice. Somebody's got a great voice. Let's see. Broken. I want to go outside. I want to go outside. So it's very easy to set up. I feel like I dropped something. Thank you. But now we're going from what's the big difference really between the Big Mac switch and this one? We're making choices. A talkable 3. So who might this be good for? Really students who are going beyond just that making a sound, that cause and effect, to making choices. So from here, I want to go outside. What is this? I'm thirsty, Daddy. We can be making choices, and then we can throw in something, so we can give them 2 good options, 2 things that they like, and watch for avoidance if, like, I want a paperclip is the 3rd choice. Does that make sense? It gives you a way of measuring that understanding. As you throw in, you kind of sabotage it, because you can put 3 things on here that they like, that individual likes. And how do you, and so if they're happy with all the outcomes, how do you know that they're learning that it's meaningful? So, and that's a good thing. That's called error-free learning, and that's a good start. But then we can start working in some sabotage. Isn't that great that we like the word sabotage?